Well, as we step forward again, we're very happy to have Anthony Montero with Draver. Anthony is joining us today. It's our first opportunity. Anthony has been out fishing a little bit last week, and want to bring him on board first to see how he did and what he caught last week, and also hear from him on his topic: how can you beat Carvana at their own game? Anthony, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bill. Thanks for having me today. Excited to talk about this session. Great to follow Rusty and Andrew there. Those guys really on top of their game when we talk about digital retailing. And it's funny because I didn't know what they were going to be, their topic really was, or what their content was. And as I go through my presentation, it really ties together so nicely. And there's even a piece in there that talked about market scan and how important, how they've changed the game with their APIs, tying it all together. So pretty cool.
Well, great, Anthony. So glad to have you on board with us this afternoon. We're going to hand it over to you to get started, and we're looking forward to the session. So welcome aboard.
Okay. All right. Well, let me try to share my screen and make sure I get the right one. I'm pretty good at it these days with all these Zoom meetings that we do. As you can see, I'm working from home like most of us do, but I want to start off and just talk about, and pivot what Andrew and Rusty were talking about. And it's, this new digital retailing, I call it remote selling, because digital retailing, I think, is a small piece of the pie. And Andrew talked about it with being culture and employees and things of that nature. But I looked at it from the perspective of how do you beat Carvana at their own game? Because if you think about it, they're the pioneers, right? They're the guys who kind of started with this whole, I'm going to bring the car to your house. I'm going to pick up your trade. I'm going to appraise it remotely. And so, we're now in this place where we have to provide a service or services to compete in those spaces, right? So how do I drop those cars off? So, when Rusty and Andrew and all the other folks in this space start talking about digital retailing, that's all in the front end, the payment calculation, super difficult thing to do. Adding the accessories, getting the paperwork done, the financing, the trade appraisal. How do you physically still do that when the customer's not sitting in front of you? So I'm gonna pivot to that. Hold on one second. I need to do this. So what I want to talk about is this last mile, right? How do you solve the challenges and close this loop? Because if you think of how we've always sold cars, there's step one, greet the customers, step two, qualify them, step three, right? I'm not going to go through all the steps. We all know what they are. But there's now steps in the middle that are missing that I can't complete because the customer is not sitting in front of me. I can't have them sign a piece of paperwork. I can't walk around their trade to see if there's a dent or if the spare tire is missing. I can't have them walk around my car to get them excited about it. Or at least I don't think I can, but we're going to talk about some solutions or maybe some ideas that solve that last mile. How do you connect it? Great movie. I'm sure everybody's seen this movie, but Brad Pitt, Billy Beane, says to the Major League Baseball scout in the part of the movie, he said, listen, you need to adapt or you die, right? So this is where we're at. And this isn't a drop dead, hey, everybody needs to move to digital retailing. It is how do I weave this into my business model so that it makes sense for me as the dealer and I don't kill myself in cost, right? Because there's costs that come into play when you think about how do I move a vehicle from point A to point B. There's a cost there. I don't care if you hire someone to do it or if you have your own staffer do it, you're still paying some money to make that happen. So I want to get into that too a little bit later. But this is a study from Cox that I found really interesting, and it's rather old. It's about 3 years old, 2.5 years old at least, way before COVID. But they studied consumers and asked them what do they want. Well, this is what they found. They prefer digital negotiation process. I think we all have come to the realization that a consumer would rather get much of it out of the way before they get to the dealership. They also found some interesting thing, and I highlighted those in red, the inability to inspect the vehicle. That's the dealer had a problem with this, right? Because they're putting a value on a car that's 30,000, 40, 50, or maybe even more of what is that vehicle worth for me to take it in on trade and I don't physically get to inspect it. I can go through the equipment, I can use all the tools that are out there, but do I really know exactly what that car's worth? If you read the fine print, they all say subject to physical inspection when you get to the end of the day. Well, what does that do in this digital retail process? Customers also said they're uncomfortable not doing it without a test drive. So, you know, how do I get the customer to test drive a vehicle virtually? Or do I bring it to them? And that's some of the questions that we'll go through here. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I do think it's important to point out, how did we get here, right? Tesla came out with this OE direct model around 2005, 2006. Everybody said Tesla will never make it. And until probably 2 years ago, I was still kind of, is Tesla going to really make it through? They were bleeding money. Their car sales weren't where they thought it would be. But now look at their stock. It's one of the high flyers. It's one of the biggest performers. They figured it out. Their cars are selling. They figured it out. Carvana and Varun come on the scene, right? So now they're saying, well, wait a minute, I'm not a retailer, but I'm a used car dealer, but I don't really have any physical facilities. And then they started to build the Pez dispenser facilities and selling cars remotely. It changed the way that people looked at how can I buy a car. Now, if you look at 2013, fast forward to 2020, we never thought that those models would take off. And I'll talk about Roadster a lot, Carvana a lot, because this is the session. How do I beat these guys? Roadster came on the scene. They have a great widget that plugs into the website. I believe they use Rusty's APIs to drive their payments. The dealer started to plug these in. So now the consumer started to get further down the road. The reason I bring this up and the reason I know a lot about it is because I was a product VP at eLead for many years. And we built a product called Deal Builder. And I heard Andrew talk about this. You got to tie the online shopper to the dealership. Those two things need to be connected. Once you disconnect those, then you've got a major problem from an automotive retail perspective. So we built a product that when you went online and you calculated your payments and you put your car in your basket and you added accessories and applied for financing, when you walked in the showroom, the salesperson would pull you up on a tablet. They say, hey, Anthony Montero, I see that you're looking at the 2014 whatever, and you're trading in and you're financing and you've been approved. And they took that customer from online to on-premise and moved them very quickly through the process. But what we found is that that wasn't enough to do it completely offline. And that's where we're going to go. And how do I fill those gaps? But if you look at it today, there's all kinds of companies. Again, I keep talking about Rusty's business, but it's beautiful because what they've done is they've enabled all of these companies, these tech companies, to build the widgets to plug into the website without all that super heavy lifting, the payment calculation, the taxes, the GVWR, the VAT tax, the Colorado across the street tax. So it's been, I hate to use the word, and not to minimize those companies, but it's been commoditized because people can build the widgets, plug into Rusty's API, and now have a payment calculator. Does that solve all of the problems that dealers have today trying to provide this experience? And this screen is pretty much that landscape, right? So there's all these different companies that provide these services to car dealers as an element of the online buying experience. Where is the market going? I talked a little bit about, is Tesla going to survive? Is Carvana going to survive? Even today, I have conversations with people around the business that say, Carvana's losing money, their model's not right, they can't survive, they're paying way too much for cars. And guess what? Every single one of those things are true. But if you turn on the TV and watch any program for longer than 1 hour, you're going to see a Carvana or Tesla ad. They're spending tens and millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising because the model is being driven by consumer demand. Now, they may be losing money now, but just like Tesla, I truly believe that they'll be profitable soon. But I also believe that as a dealer body, we can we can do things to compete on an even ground and even a higher ground because we have a bigger reach, we have more points, we have more creativity, we have more ingenuity, we know more about selling cars in the retail space than Carvana does on their best day if we aggregate our thoughts and our business practices into one. So look at this slide. Vehicles sold without visiting a dealership. That means 100% online. I filled out my paperwork. Somebody brought me a car. 420,000 cars were sold in 2018. It moved to about 650K in 2019 because Vroom and Carvana really started to get some traction. 2020 now, this was done in 2019 pre-COVID. They predicted that about 1.4 million vehicles will be sold completely online because more companies like Andrews and other companies that are providing tools, mechanisms, training, processes would be able to facilitate this through dealerships, not just the Carvanas, not just the Vrooms, not just the Teslas, that your progressive dealer would be able to completely facilitate a remote sale. And they projected that through 2023, about 8 million vehicles will be sold this way. Well, guess what happened? We all know what happened. End of February, March, and April, COVID hit. Everything gets shut down. And some dealers could still stay in business. Where I'm from in Florida, they were still considered needed business. So they were able to stay in business, but customers got afraid. And they didn't want to come into the dealership. So the Carvana ads starting to get more and more prevalent, Vroom more and more prevalent. And now dealers started to say, how do I shift my business? How do I change my game? And if you remember my first slide, it says, you know, you got to change the game. Like in football, if they change where you kick the ball off from, then you need to change your plays. If they change how you have to tackle somebody so it's not a penalty, then you have to learn how to run the play a little bit differently than you used to. You know, we're a business of 40 years doing, 50 years doing things the same way. In the last 15 years, we introduced, you know, the internet car buying, right? So that kind of changed everything to more, I'm going to be able to buy cars over the internet, but not completely. And, you know, it goes all the way back. I was part of autoweb.com when they first started. I was one of the first 4 guys there. And, you know, that wasn't easy. That was a huge culture change in market shift from newspapers to browsing the internet for a car in 1996. Guess what? Dealers didn't even have the internet. And we were out there trying to pitch this thing, you know, go online, put your cars online. But, you know, this is where we are today. But COVID's accelerated this by 5 to 7 times because 1, consumers have seen that the ability for it to happen is there. And 2, dealers are starting to adapt it a lot quicker than they ever thought that they would. Our business model for what we do into 2021, 2022 was way less than it is today because we never expected what COVID did for remote car buying and servicing and moving vehicles at the scale that we now have to move them. Feel free to jump in here anytime, Bill, if you have questions as I go along as well. But here's a pretty cool study, right? And this, again, this was pre-COVID. Someone said you need to do one post-COVID. But we did a study as we started to build out our business model. And we said, simply, would you buy a car online? So we surveyed customers, just simple yes or no, would you buy a car completely online? Then we asked, would you be willing to pay a fee? This is interesting because everybody, you know, starts talking about the cost of how do I afford to do this? Would you be willing to pay a fee for somebody to come to your home and appraise your trade or inspect it? And customers said, 59% of them said, very likely or likely. And we had a little slider that went from $19 to $139, and it landed at $37. So even pre-COVID, consumers were saying their time is more valuable than having to go to a dealership, and they would actually pay for that. The same question here is, would you pay some money to have somebody bring you the car to your house? And 86% of the consumers at that time said yes. Right now, I got to imagine it's 90%, 99. And they said they pay $58. So without even COVID being present, and without dealers even offering that service, we already saw consumers moving towards that buyer sentiment. So what are the missing pieces? As a dealer, how do I solve these infrastructure problems? Because that's what they are, right? The payment calculation, the adding the accessory, the applying for financing, the getting the financing in place, those things are all solid and they're rock solid. And companies have figured that out and they do a great job in providing those tools. When it gets to the dealership, now this is where we see the problems happening, right? Because how do I physically inspect the trade that I got to put all this money on? How do I get that paperwork done? Because it's not all completely digital yet. Hopefully soon it will. It's moving quicker, but we still have states and banks and institutions that want a wet signature on a piece of paper, press hard 3 times. So how do I facilitate that? And then how do I do this whole pickup and delivery of the vehicles? I can, as a small to medium sized dealer, can I really afford to go buy a bunch of flatbeds? Can I really afford to add 5 or 6 different staff members? It was interesting because I watched Andrew and he said they furloughed a lot of their employees. I'm talking about dealers, and now they're thinking about hiring them back and hiring back at a different skill. So is that different skill a runner, a paperwork delivery guy, a home delivery person, a go pick up a trade, a go take a bunch of pictures of a trade guy? So these are things that we'll discuss in this session, but I want to look at what does Carvana do that we would copy, right? Why would we copy something that doesn't work, and why would we copy something that does work? So here's my first question to anybody watching. Do you even want to do this? I guess if you're watching, the answer would be yes. But do you even have the desire to sell off-site? Because we do a lot of presentations every single day. And some of our dealers actually sign up and then they don't do it. And, it's an interesting experiment that we did. It's not even an experiment. It's our prospecting. We go out to dealer websites and we have our sales guys go out in markets. And the easiest person for us to figure out who a prospect is, if they have these big banners on their website that say, we'll deliver the car to your house, and we have this offsite selling process. Well, what we've noticed is we'll mystery shop them to see what their process is. Maybe there's something we can learn. Maybe we figure out who the right person is to offer our services to. Well, guess what? Well over half of those dealers that we mystery shop have the big banner. They have 0 process. The salespeople don't know about it. The BDC people look at you and answer you like you've got 3 heads. There's no process in place. The culture hasn't changed one bit. The come on in, we'll appraise your car while you're here, you got to come in and test drive it, is still very prevalent amongst our community of dealers. But the reality is there's a lot of progressive dealers, and even dealers that aren't progressive, that are moving into these models that were talked about in the previous session and I'm talking about now, because unfortunately some of them are forced to. They're being dragged and kicked in a headlock versus raising their hand going, hey, this is really what I want to do. This is how I believe I should run my business. The guys who get there, and dealership operators who get to say, this is how I want to run my business, are the ones that we start to see that are really taking advantage of this new marketplace and these new tools that are out there to help their businesses survive. And not only that, it's good for consumers because consumers love it because they're being conditioned that way. So ask yourself this: what's your sales process? Do you even offer any of these things? Do you have the website widget, the Roadster, or Moto Insight, or any of those widgets on your website? Do you offer an offsite test drive? We already know consumers don't want to buy used cars unless they test drive them. If you're buying a Honda Accord and you've always had one, it's 3-year model newer, not that big of a deal. But if it's a pre-owned car, which is most of our sales, customers want to test drive it. So how do we get them that car to test drive? How do I get offsite to inspect the trade, or do I just wing it and say, I'll give you $35,000 based on the information that I have. And if it's dented and scratched and things are missing, I just eat that. Or do I go back to you and say, hey, you didn't tell me there was a dent on it. I'm going to need another $2,000, right? So now you kind of get into that really uncomfortable negotiation aspect of, I already said I'd give you this, but now I'm going to try to come and take it back. How do I do the paperwork offsite? And do you offer it? Are you telling your customers that I have a process where I can get you the paperwork, do it completely offline, and you don't have to come to my dealership? So again, that is a culture change. We're not used to that. We're used to the F&I person sitting in the office and going through the paperwork and upselling the products that, you know, in all honesty, are profit centers. So how do we still maintain our profits and do all these other things that we have to do to facilitate this new consumer demanded buying process? Do you offer home delivery, or do you just have the thing on your website that says we offer home delivery, and then nobody else at the dealership actually understands that you do that? Is your staff trained? Can they handle that? Are your outbound internet templates set up? Your inbound phone scripts, your trade-in, are all these things that we do every day in the car business, are they tweaked to handle this buying model? And again, the first question is, do you even want to do it? So let's go back to Carvana, right? Because if we look at their model, listen, I think it's majorly flawed. And my business model of our company leverages the fact that their business model is flawed. But they've figured out the process, and they deliver the process on a very consistent basis. And there's a major demand in the marketplace for it. Are their cars better than yours, right? So ask these questions. Are your cars no better than what Carvana offers? Why are customers going to these outlets? You have the same cars, you're buying them at the same auctions, you're taking in the same trades. Are their finance rates lower than your banks? The answer is probably no. Yours are probably better than theirs, because you have relationships with banks that do a lot of these things. Are their car prices better than yours? That one I can't answer, because I see in some cases in some markets where dealers' car prices are significantly higher than what Carvana is offering. So, those are something that in each individual markets that dealers have to look at. But is that the case? Is their staff better than yours? Well, probably not. They really don't have a lot of staff. Most of their staff are, the worker bees, because they're not doing presentations, and they don't have service facilities, and there's a lot of things that these outlets do not offer that a dealer offers that makes a dealer so much better than these virtual outlets. So let's look at their websites, right? So this is always interesting to me from a dealer's perspective. They have, oops, let me go back to that slide here. So delivering now and always. So that's their first message. Is that the first message that we're portraying on our website if this is the business that we want to get in, of delivering cars to consumers, buying made easy? The websites are simple. I ask everybody to go on Carvana, go on Vroom, and see if you get a pop-up widgets, see if you get flashing signs, see if a chat person tries to engage you 75 times in the last 6 minutes, see if there is competing pricing for the same vehicle, where there's this price and then there's that price, but if you do this, then you get this price, but on Thursdays, there's always that price. Or if you have to fill out something to get a price, which is always an interesting concept from the consumer's perspective. So put yourself in the consumer's seat and say, would I rather do it like this, or would I rather do it like that? And if your business is like that, then let's look at how we can adjust that and how you could possibly change it, right? So like I said, Carvana says they're the pioneer of online car buying. Guess what? They are. They are, so they can say it. But look at the thing that they have. They've got a flatbed truck with a car in the back of it. It's not scalable. You can't supply enough flatbed trucks to your everyday dealer. And even your mid to big size dealers do not want to have 15, 30 flatbed trucks with a bunch of staff and people to figure out where they're going. So there's a scaling problem there. The other thing that they do is they offer to buy a car. They'll buy a customer's car and they'll do it very quickly, and they'll put some numbers on it and they'll make an offer, and that's how they're acquiring all this inventory. Yes, we know they're going to auctions and they're outbidding everybody and spending stupid money for cars on auctions. I see it all the time. It's crazy. But at the same time, they're trying to gain market share with their presence because they're leveraging the current environment, which is people want to stay at home and buy a car. So how do I, as a dealer, give the service to my consumer base that wants it to stay at home and buy a car? Look at the first thing they say when they say a whole new way to buy a car. The first thing they say is no dealerships. It's like they've leveraged, it's not like they have, they've leveraged the fact that consumers would rather not go to a dealership. Now, dealerships have changed significantly since I've started in the business in 1989, which is a long, long time ago, and it was significantly different. You know, even when I was at Sonic in the early 2008, 2009, 11, and 12 eras, even to today, how the dealership experience is so much different. But guess what? There is a demand for customers that don't want to be at a dealership and they don't want a middleman. and they sell this certification process, right, around their car that is certified. And they do this really intense inspection and they show the inspection. I went on 15 websites before I did this presentation of car dealers. I couldn't find one inspection of any car, of any type, of any inventory. I see the free Carfax or the free auto check, but I didn't see one inspection. And you know what, as a consumer, that is a great selling feature. So we need to think about how do we do that, right? You're in control. Ever since I've been in the car business, running dealerships, building software, guess what the mentality always has been? Keep control of your customer. It was the number one thing we taught our salespeople for years. Do not let the customer get out of your control. You want to control where they go, where they sit, the questions they answer, the direction that they sit in, the paths that they walk down, where you put your inventory, where they park their car. You want to control everything. Well, guess what? We have to let the control be in the consumer's hands, just like Carvana is doing, just like the experience happens on Amazon, just like the experience happens on pretty much everything that you do today. The customer's in control. We need to let them get back in control with our guidance and give them the tools that they need so that they can facilitate these processes and buy more cars from dealers, not Carvana, because Carvana is not our friend. It may be our friend in my business. So I could be costing myself some opportunity because we move cars at scale and so do they. So this could be, Carvana could be sitting there going, what the heck is this guy talking about? We're not going to let him move our cars. But you know what? I care more about dealers, and I'm in this business because I'm always been a dealer. I build software for dealers, and I want to figure out a way that I can help dealers. And that's what I've always done with software processes and facilitation of a process so that they can make more money, so that they can dominate their markets and not these third parties that come in and try to steal away market share. Find the best car for you is something that's really interesting. They have this really cool 360-degree spin car version of all of their inventory, and every dent and every scratch is highlighted. So it's super transparent with the inspection process. So again, I tried to find some of that. There's some dealers that do a pretty good job with that. But for the most part, we're not there yet. So those are some of the things that, again, we need to go back and look at. And I'll recap all of this towards the end of this session. The touchless delivery and trade-in, again, I'm in this business. I've been doing this for a super long time. If I hear touchless or contactless one more time, it's just one of those things that is a buzzword that everybody uses over and over again. But I guess, just like anything in marketing, if it works, keep doing it, right? I don't care if I don't like it. I don't care if I don't like the color blue on my website, but it's the best color, then that's what we should do. So this whole spelling out the process to the consumer that makes them feel like they're in control, that they can sit at home or sit at work if they're going to work and do these things. What do I need to do? Oh, I need to give you my driver's license, and then I need to do this, and then I need to get an envelope, and then I'm done. Oh, well, that sounds easy. I'm in. And we see customers going down this path because they're making it easy, they're making it simple, and they're making it very clear of what the expectations are. And guess what they're doing? They're fulfilling the expectations for the most part. If you go on YouTube and look for Carvana customer testimonials or stories, there's as many stories of a bad experience as there is a good one, because again, there's a lot of moving pieces here to sell cars remotely. Delivering the car, what time does it get there? What happens if there's traffic? What happens if the car they're bringing back breaks down? There's so many things that could go wrong in this process, that it's not always going to be perfect. But listen, if as a dealer, we don't start doing this today and figure out what tweaks we need to make from our own internal processes, we'll never get there. We'll never get there because we won't have broken something to know how to fix it, if that makes sense. Here's something that's really interesting. Everybody thinks that the expense is on the dealer. If you look at these guys, Carvana and Vroom, there's a delivery fee. If you're outside of Carvana's market, you pay a delivery fee. For certain types of cars, you pay delivery fees. Vroom charges delivery fee right up front, 600 bucks. So they're charging it, people are paying it. Why wouldn't we as a dealer charge it? It doesn't, the manufacturers charge us to get cars on our lot. Why wouldn't we charge a consumer to take a car to them? So think about that, and don't just look at these things as, man, it's going to cost me $100 or $200 to deliver that car to the customer's house. I'll just pass on that, right? Well, you don't have to, because I already showed you in an earlier slide, consumers are willing to pay money for the convenience of not getting up off their chairs while they're buying their car. So let's look at their infrastructure. I won't spend too much time on this because I think I covered it a fair amount. But physical inspection of the trade, right? So they send a staff to perform an inspection if it's within range. Can you do that? Will you be able to do that? Do you want to do that? Or is it okay just to take the guesstimation of the information that we process through our vAutos and everything else that we have today? Paperwork. How do I get all the paperwork done so that I can facilitate bringing the car to the customer's home? How do I check the customer's license to validate that it's actually a legitimate license and that the person I'm bringing the car to is that person? Where are those tools? I'll show you some of them. But the paperwork piece of it, in many states, there still needs to be wet ink. So how do I get the paperwork there for the ones that I can't have signed digitally? Pickup and delivery of the vehicles. How many people watching this webinar are going to go out and buy a $100,000, $200,000 flatbed, or 2 or 3 or 4, and then logistically plan where they go, who drives them, when they're being driven, manage those drivers? Probably none of us want to do that. And, I've got many stories of our current customers that started down that road that backed away very quickly just because of the cost got so high and it didn't make sense. And this is why I say Carvana has a problem scaling, because how many flatbed trucks can you put into operation around the country? How many vans do you need? How many additional staff do you need to move all of those vehicles around? And it relies on, individual processes and management that we currently don't have in our dealerships, that we either need to install or decide that we're not going to do it. The other piece is this relies a very high level of customer engagement. When the customer is in your store, I can engage them because they're sitting right in front of me. When they're not in my store, I'm reliant upon them reading my email or answering my phone call or replying to my text message or answering my FaceTime chat or whatever it is. I'm completely reliant upon that consumer to move my deal forward than I am if that customer's standing right in front of me, sitting right in front of me. We're going on a test drive, they come back and I can wrap the deal up. So this requires a massive amount of communication and skill to be able to do this and do it with efficiency so that you're not wasting your time trying to get into this part of the business. So why are customers making this shift? Well, the average time spent at a car dealer, by the time they get in their car and travel to the dealership, do a test drive, buy a car, and sign the paperwork is 5+ hours, all in one span. Now, as we know, many customers break this up over multiple visits, but guess what? The consumers don't want the multiple visits anymore. They want to not visit, or if they do, they want to make it one time. They want to get as much as they can get done up front and then show up at that car dealership and put a bow on it. Or in this case, I want the car dealership to come to me. I don't even want to go to the car dealership. And most of us that are in this business are spoiled with that process. You know, we all probably know anybody we can pick up the phone and say, hey, I want this vehicle. Here's the car I have in trade. This is how much I need. They send us the paperwork. We do an envelope exchange, and the car shows up in my driveway in 2 days. So we're used to that. Most customers aren't. Customers are used to it. When I say it, I mean the remote buying process. Anybody knows, and again, I watched those guys earlier, and it was great because they talked about the conditioning of the consumer that goes online, click, 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 something shows up on my doorstep tomorrow, sometimes even the same day. It's crazy because of the logistics that are put in place to be able to funnel all those orders and get them shipped out and get them at your door. Groceries delivered, DoorDash. So with COVID and everything locked down and people not leaving their homes, they figured out how to pick up their phone, use an app, and a basket of chicken shows up on their doorstep, or a hamburger, or their groceries, or a new computer, or their pants. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Consumers today can go online, buy something, and it shows up on their doorstep. Now, is buying a car the same thing? No, it's 100% more complex, more complicated. There's a trade-in involved, which about 70 or 80% of the time puts a cog in the wheel, the valuation, the payoff. There's a lot more involved than, trust me, ordering a hamburger. But consumers are used to this process and they want to extend it into their car buying process. And we need to figure out as a industry, how do we do it? How do we do it efficiently? And how do we do it effectively? So again, we don't have these third-party companies like Carvanas and Vrooms coming into our marketplace and sucking this market away from us with consumers that want to do it this way and will only do it this way. They've made buying a vehicle from your house and dropping it a brand name. Now this to me is awesome, because if I was running a store right now, guess what I would say on my website? I have a Carvana process. That's all I would say. We have a Carvana process. You know why? Because everybody knows what the heck Carvana is. And they know that means bringing a car to your house and you don't have to go to a dealership. So if I was a dealership, guess what? Guess what we have at our dealership? We've got the Carvana process. And customers are like, oh, geez, I know what that is. Yeah, let's go. Let me click and buy. So, you know, again, don't say that you're going to do it or that you can do it if you're not able to do it, because that's an expectation that can't be met, right? That's saying I'm going to bring it to your house and I'm going to sell it to you online, but oh, by the way, you have to bring your trade in so we can appraise it, right? So that breaks the whole steps along the way of, is it really truly a remote buying process? But listen, back on that point, if they're spending tens or hundreds of millions of dollars advertising that thing, we'll bring your car to your house, why not leverage that? Because it's being ingrained in people's heads that somebody will bring me a car if I do these certain things online, and I don't have to go and sit there and go through the experience of a car dealership. And to us, listen, who cares? Because as long as I'm selling cars and I'm making money, that's a good thing. So this next segment, I want to talk about why would I want to copy a business model that's losing money? And Carvana is losing money and losing it in a big way, right? But let's take the good, throw out the bad, because we don't have to keep the bad, because they're not car dealers. They don't have facilities like we do. They don't have service stations like we do. So we can keep the good stuff that the consumers like, get rid of all the bad stuff, and now we can dominate our markets, right? So let's talk about a couple of things real quick. Consumer demand is high. That's good, right? Anytime consumer demand on anything, this happens to be a process. It's not the cars, it's not the people, it's not the facilities. It's the process. It's the process of I can buy a car online. That's it. That's why they're popular for in the markets that they're in. I can expand my market. I don't have to just be in this market. We've been doing that for a little while, but now I can do it even more. I can keep a smaller footprint. If you look at the Carvana model, they've got these lots that don't have a lot of cars on them, and they don't have these big, massive footprints of dealerships. So maybe at some point we start to contract our footprint and lower our cost of to the banks for floor planning and certain things like that. So that's a little bit further down the road. Their process is driven by logistics. Their whole business operation is driven by logistics and markets and demographic and what cars go where and how do I move them, where do I move them, at what time of day. It's all driven by a massive logistics platform. So if you don't have one of those, then you're relying on our everyday humans that work for us, which are smart, but they're not computers, and they don't have historical data of traffic patterns in the back of their mind to know that it's probably going to cost me $40 less money to take this car to that customer today because of the traffic patterns and so on and so forth and everything else that needs to be considered to make this a profitable endeavor. They have the ability to acquire more inventory because they're paying more money, but they have a really, really strong buy the car from the consumer process that works. And consumers sell them cars every single day at scale. So they're acquiring more inventory because their process has proven to work. It's a perfect model for the environment. COVID's here. People are staying home. People are learning that they don't have to go to a car dealership or a place of business to get stuff because stuff is coming to them. They go through a few steps and clicks on their computer, and guess what? Now they have it. This is being extended into our industry. So we either embrace it, we take a percentage of it, we take as much as we can, or we take none of it, which there still be, if I was a dealer and I decided to take none of it, depending on my market, I'd probably still do fine because customers are still going to come in. This is not a do it or don't do it and you go out of business. It is a, how do I capture what's there and take advantage of that while I can, as it will grow, because we all know it's growing. It's not going away. Customers aren't going to all of a sudden say, hey, the last time I bought a car, someone brought it to me and landed it on my driveway. This time I decided I'm going to go in and shop up and down the road for 12 different dealerships. It's going to continue to grow. Things are going to continue to change. So we have to change as an industry. The steps are simple and easy. Their website's clean. There's no intrusions. There's no confusing paths to go down. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. Take a look at those websites. Take a look at yours. Talk to your website vendor and say, how do I get closer to this? Because that's a simple path. This path over here tends to be pretty convoluted and the message is all over the place. Listen, websites have gotten 10,000 times better in the last 5 to 7 years than I've seen, but there's still a lot to be done when you go on a dealership's website and funnel that customer into the right path that's clean and easy, and it doesn't distract them all over the place with all of these different things that we do with offers here and offers there and this price and that price. It's just look at it. What's bad about those guys? They have high costs. They're overpaying for inventory. They've got a limited geographical footprint. They require flatbed trucks or vans or people to do all that delivering. They don't have any service facilities. So if I'm a consumer and I buy a car from there, I have to figure out where to get it fixed. If something's wrong with it, I don't have a place to bring it back to. They're starting to do things with partnering with local service stations, which is smart. But at the same time, it's not the place I bought it from, and I don't have a relationship. And we all know that relationships is part of this business. It is solely reliant upon that buyer segment. They only have the segment of buyers that want to buy remotely because that's their business model. They don't have the segment of buyers who haven't got there yet. So as a dealer, let's take the best of both, right? Let's take our standard market and let's take some of the market that they're taking from us. Because I look at it this way. I would be selling those cars that Carvana selling if I have a dealership in that market, but they're taking market share away from me because they're offering a process that I don't currently have. I'm losing business. So change the culture from 100% on-site to a hybrid version. I wholly suggest to do a hybrid version. It doesn't make sense to go to a full Carvana model. Keep what you're doing, add in some off-site sales, scale it up, scale it down. You know, you might want to do 10 this week or 1 this week or 15. Be able to expand and contract your business as the market demands, and as you adopt to these processes, make it so that it can scale up easily without having to invest any upfront costs. That's a key. Don't put a bunch of money in this upfront because you don't have to. Train the staff on remote sales, install steps of process for the offsite process, buy direct from consumers. Put a great strategy in your dealerships to buy cars directly from consumers. Many of you already do that. You're saying, I've been doing that for years, Anthony. What are you talking about? Many don't. This is kind of their little catch to get more inventory because they do it really efficiently. Revamp your website. I've harped on that. Use on-demand workforce. Don't go out and hire a bunch of people to do this. There's company like ours that will offer supplemental workforce to be able to do a home delivery or go out there and inspect a trade or move a car from point A to point B or drive the paperwork over to the customer and have it dropped off. So this takes away the investment of the flatbeds or additional staff or other things to do this, because you take the Rustys and the Andrews companies and you take companies like Draver and you connect them together. Guess what? You've got the end to end. You've got the full thing. You haven't spent a dime on an additional person, an additional truck, or an additional anything other than you pay by the drink. As you use it, you pay for it. It might go up, might go down, but you're able to scale it. You're able to scale it at your growth rate, not anybody else's. This is something that's interesting. I heard other industry experts talk about this. Consider banding together in markets to share costs. It's crazy, right? Because as a dealer, I am not going to help that guy do nothing because he's my competitor. Well, they're able to go to auctions and buy more cars because they're spending more money, but they're also kind of corporatize their whole deal. And if you're in a market with an Asbury or Sonic or Mile One or Group One or AutoNation, they tend to be able to beat up on markets too, because they have the buying power of their volume buying, not only for oil or other stuff, but they can go and share inventory, and Sonic does a great job with their logistics of this car sells better in that market versus that market, and they do a great job of moving it around. Well, if you're a smaller dealer and you've got a bunch of independents in the market, think about getting together and creating a consortium of aligning and being able to share some costs of things like drivers to move cars around. Why do you need to have 5 drivers on staff to do home deliveries when you're only doing 5 a week, right? Or maybe you do 5 that day and you need all 4 or 5 and they're doing other things. Why not share costs like that with other people in your market that gives you the ability to say, hey, I'm just going to use these people that we're sharing as we need them and share costs like that, which will drive costs down, because not everybody's, it's like a fractional ownership of employees, which is an interesting concept, and it's going to become more and more prevalent as time goes on, not just, developers. We do it all the time with developers. I just need a developer for this one project for 3 months. So I just go buy that developer. I don't hire a $150,000 guy. I just buy the amount of time I need that person for. Think about that in your dealership operations and how that can traverse across a lot of different areas of your dealership when you can share some of these costs. So that leads to gig workforce that scales for your business, because now you can offer those remote test drives and you can bring cars to customers without investing additional staff, because you're using gig, you're using on-demand workforces that as you need it, that's when you use it. You don't pay for it any other time. And, we built our whole logistics platform around being able to say, we need 12 drivers in that market today, and we need 22 drivers in that market, because that's the demand in that marketplace. And our drivers will show up and they'll bring the car to the customer. They'll pick up cars and bring them back. They'll go inspect it. And our dealer clients don't have to hire those people. They don't have to invest in that money. They're just saying, hey, I only need one of those today. I'm going to pay the one, $70. Boom, here we go. I need 20 today because I got this big fleet sale that I need to deliver all these vehicles over to Amazon. We have a customer that delivers the vans to Amazon, but it's very sporadic, right? It's in spurts. Sometimes they deliver 20, sometimes they deliver 3. Guess what? They pay for 20 and they pay for 3. But if you staff to your max capacity, guess what? I need to staff for 20. And then I have days of 3. So guess what? That's a bunch of waste. So that's, those are things to think about as you start to move into this new environment of how do I do this and how do I facilitate this? Because, again, in the beginning of the session, I'm coming to the end here. In the beginning of the session, we talked about how do I change the game? And we watched the guys from before that said digital retailing is becoming more and more prevalent. But what happens at the physical aspect of facilitating all of this, the coordination, who brings the car, who picks up the car, when, where, what time, where do I take it to, who has it? If you're doing remote test drives, guess what? Where are they? I've got 3 out on test drives. Are they all day? Are they 2 days long? When do I get them back? Who goes and picks them up? There's so much involved that's super complex here that to just walk in and say, I put the widget on my website and I'm in the digital retail business. Whoever tried it already found out it's not that easy. Anyone who hasn't tried it, I'm telling you right now, it's not that easy. So you got to work through it. There's a lot of companies, and I'm not just talking about mine, but other great companies that help and are there to help dealerships to get to the point where they can do all of this. They can offer all of these services, and again, not have to make these massive major investments. The investment you need to make is in your culture, that you want to do it, that everybody in your organization does it, and that your investment is going to be in training, word tracks, email templates, follow-up. How do who's responsible for what? Do you have a dispatcher now? Because you're moving all these cars all over the place that you normally didn't do. Even though we move a lot of cars, there's now additional ones that come into play that are a little bit more complex. So, that's the investment of the dealership personnel and the culture within the dealership to say, this is how we're going to run our business. So I'm about to wrap this up. Don't hire, borrow, right? Because if I can borrow people to do things that I need them to do, then I've saved money, I've saved time, and I'm able to now facilitate all of these things without these massive investments in infrastructure. So I'm done. Hopefully that all made sense.
Anthony, really, really interesting presentation. I want to thank you for that. Really broke it down nicely. I guess, one question just as follow up with regard to this. You talked in generalities, but how much should a dealer expect to spend on kind of getting into this business of selling off site? What broad strokes can you share with us? I know it's hard to pinpoint exact numbers.
Sure. Well, again, if I was a dealer, I would charge the consumer to bring them a car if they want to test drive it. And I would do a nominal number. I would, we'd probably charge, depending on the distance, our company would probably charge you between $50 and $70 to bring that car and get that driver back to where they need to go. Now, here's a cool thing that we already knew, but works really well. I'm going to take a car to test drive it with a customer, and then I'm going to bring back their trade, right? So now I have the trade, they have my car, we do the digital retail thing in the middle, and I can either say, hey, do you want to keep the car? You got all the paperwork, and we'll do a virtual walk around. I have a dealer that takes their iPhone and does FaceTime with the customer at the car, and they have the customer walk around the car and they go, hey, this is how you set the radio station. This is where the seat goes back. This is how you put the air conditioner. And they do it virtually, and it's not the same as being right there, but it's bringing it closer than just saying, hey, watch this video, right, of some guy doing a walk around. So, between $50 and $70 per picking up and dropping off a car, Service is normally a little less because the distances are tighter, right? Because they're normally pretty local. You know, that's a $40 or $50 move. But the beautiful thing is you only pay for it when you do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't invested. What's an average porter cost at, call it $500 a week times 4.3 times 12. So, you know, if you just hire a porter, you're already into it.
Yeah, no doubt. Anthony, man, thank you so much. This was a great presentation. I love the setup there that you've got too with the big screen. I love the Draver messaging back there as well, set up very nicely. We thank you for that. We appreciate your partnership with the Intelligence Summit, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you and Draver as well. Anthony is the president of automotive retail at Draver. Did a great job for us today. Anthony, thank you, man. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Bill.
Great seeing you. All right. Well, that is going to come and bring our day of live sessions to an end. A reminder that all of our live keynotes are sponsored by MarketScan. MarketScan Information Systems combine science, technology, and data to provide industry-leading solutions that enable OEMs and lenders to maximize their market penetration through analytics and empower dealers to achieve digital retailing supremacy. Share your challenges with MarketScan and let them show you how to optimize your competitiveness and profitability, as well as deliver an enhanced consumer experience. Go to marketscan.com. Again, the website is marketscan.com. Also, thank you to our other sponsors, Axiom, North Carolina Auto Dealers Association, Cherokee Consulting Group, Constant, IHS Market, Draver, S&A Communications, Elin Solutions, True Payments, IBM, and Wells Fargo, and also our presenting sponsor, DRN. In a world of storytelling, is your data telling the real story? DRN's Realternative data, vehicle location data paired with powerful, exclusive analytics, helps build vehicle stories to help you analyze risk, locate hard-to-find debtors, and streamline vehicle recoveries. Real data, real analytics, real results. That's DRN. Now we have more live sessions coming for you on Friday. We'll have our Auto Intel Council. That's going to be moderated by our own Joe Overby, and we'll feature Sharon Mancero from Wells Fargo, Joe Oliveri from CAR, and Jeremiah Wheeler from DRN. Following that, Tim Cox from Car Now is going to be on board. You want to join us for that. Tim always does a great job. And then we'll close out on Friday with our auto industry venture capital fireside chat. The moderator there is Scott Wingo. He's the CEO and co-founder of Get Spiffy. It includes Steve Greenfield from Automotive Ventures, Jason Kaplane from Bull City Venture Partners, and Lister Delgado, the managing partner of Idea Fund Partners. You're going to want to join us for that on Friday for live sessions for the Automotive Intelligence Summit. For our entire crew here, my name is Bill Zadites, and we'll see you right back here on Friday. Have a great day.